welcome to this little webinar. Thank you for taking the time. Again, I'm really, really excited to share this with you guys. It's been 12 months that I have been traveling the world last year from January to December, and maybe just giving you a little bit of background around what we're going to do today. We're going to start with looking into what does traveling mean, and what did traveling mean for me versus just going to places as a tourist, and what are really the differences in the approach. Then we're going to talk a little bit about preparation. What are the things that you would have to look into if you were going to do something similar yourself, and also talk a little bit about the risk of over-preparing, which I was certainly guilty of. I'm going to give you a couple of my own personal highlights. That's funny stories, and some of the things that I really took away from this year. We're going to talk about learnings and things that I feel I took away from the year in terms of just how do I go about living my life today. And then in the end, I have a set of quotes and maybe some inspiration. Also, will share my own contact information for anyone who wants to get in touch, wants to know more, has certain questions. Again, this is nothing that I do in any way for job or professional. I really just thought that this year was so important for my own development and has given me so much that I want to share it with as many of you guys as possible that are interested in doing something similar. Maybe briefly about myself. My name is Catherine. I am from Germany originally, but I've always called myself a global citizen. I've jumped countries a lot, both professionally but also personally. And about 1.5 years ago, a little bit longer, I made a very bold decision, some would say, to quit my job that I'd been in for a long time, literally sell everything that was in my way, pack 2 suitcases, and decided to give myself a full year to travel the world and just experience and kind of take this time as, some would say sabbatical, but for me it was really a journey back to myself, to kind of reconnect with who I was at the essence, and really in the end finding out what that again was. I always called it a purposeful sabbatical because I undertook it with a very specific goal. So first of all, let's briefly talk about traveling and tourist versus traveler, because I think a lot of people use these terms almost interchangeably and say, I've traveled to this place or I've traveled to that place. But the approach that you have in going to a country as a tourist or as a traveler is very, very different. And both are great experiences. Obviously, it depends a lot on what you want to get out of it. But if you go to a place as a tourist, it's more a planned experience, right? You're seeking a certain experience that you have kind of planned out. It's kind of like a bucket list thing where okay, I'm going to Paris, and this day looks like this, the next day looks like that, and you have a very specific plan on what you want to see in sometimes very limited time. Versus if you travel, it's almost about seeking the unplanned. So of course you do preparation, and of course we're going to talk about this later on, but you want to be safe and you want to know the basics of the place before you go. But it's almost more about getting lost and seeking things that you haven't planned, or that you don't know what you're running into. My route started in Asia. I kind of gave you a little bit of an overview of the main countries that I went to, or that were on my route. For the first 4 months that I spent in Asia, I had never been to Asia. So for me, it was a big step into the unknown. And I kind of eased in, as you can see, through Hong Kong, which is a very, very Western, very worldly city. But exploring the whole continent and really going to, for example, different countries in Southeast Asia, and really appreciating the differences that are very very big, actually. Once you're there, you start seeing a lot of the fine little nuances in the way that people tick and in the way that they go about their lives. And that is really the essence of what I think you take away as a learning. So I would always spend extended periods of time in a continent and like really try to see the differences between countries. I believe it's very, very important. I realized that in my first 2 months where I didn't have a clear intention of what I exactly wanted to get out of it. It helps to know what you're seeking in these places, because as every place and as our home countries, every place is incredibly rich in experiences. So that is a general thing that I would recommend. So again, the first thing I was looking for was culture. I think culture is an incredibly powerful thing to learn more about the way that just people think, that people interact, and the way that they really see the world. It's interesting how you go through this cultural immersion, because the first trip or the first thing that happens usually is almost that you're very, very aware of yourself. You're in a situation where you look very different to anyone else. You're very obviously a traveler, and especially if you're on your own and by yourself, and as a woman, that can be a little bit intimidating at first. So I think the first thing is really understanding or coming to peace with the fact that you're different and that you're very obviously not from the place. And once you've kind of crossed that little threshold, that's where things really become interesting, because that's when you kind of start, loosening up and really throwing yourself into the experience of also interacting with locals, trying to get to the secret places. I put up a couple of pictures here. Most of them were from Asia. The bottom left one was actually a market in Bolivia. Top left was a coffee roastery in Bali. And the middle one is this little kid in a very small village in Borneo that we found on a hike in the jungle. The bottom left one is I was waiting to take a picture of this for a long time. It's a whole family on a scooter in Thailand, and that's actually something that you see a lot in Asia, where people take their scooters or sometimes their bikes to kind of transport the whole family. The next thing I was incredibly interested in was the spiritual side of these different countries, and to really have the ability to immerse myself in these areas was fantastic. And I guess the general advice that I would give here is to really make sure that you know about the customs and about sometimes the unsaid rules. Once you know that and you're respectful in these sites, people actually really open up, and it's very interesting to learn more about how do they approach their faith and their religion. The third thing that was a huge item on the list of things that I wanted to experience is nature. And the picture that I chose here for you guys to see is probably the most impressive moment of just natural beauty and natural immersion that we had. That's Glacier Gray down in the Torres del Paine National Park in Patagonia, kind of coming through into the glacial lake. The picture doesn't even do it justice. It's such a major moment and a major site. And we, as you can see, we actually spent a lot of time there just looking at it in silence because it was so impressive. We saw so many different beautiful natural sites all around the globe, so much nature on this planet and so many animals. Here you can see we had a lot of exposures to monkeys, both in South America and in Asia. That little llama on the bottom is at Machu Picchu, and those penguins are on the very south tip of Argentina. I met a lot of people along the way, and that is probably something that I would also tell anyone who does something similar. You meet so many people as you go through this experience. If you keep yourself open and you kind of find your people in on buses, on trains. The two people that I probably traveled most with are today probably two of my dearest friends, if not my dearest friends, because you share so many memories it's almost easier to get to know people if you're by yourself and you kind of overcome that first fear of what is that going to be like. What you find usually in a travel experience like that, from my perspective, is that the first fear of being foreign in a place that you've never seen or whatever it is so temporary, and is so so short. If you overcome that step, you really see that 95% of people are just so wonderful and so helpful. You come across so many that it's almost like someone pulled the curtain, and you look at this, this mass of people that are constantly traveling the globe, and you ask yourself, where have I been this whole time? So thank you for the question. But no matter, if you take off alone or with others, it's always your choice. There's always the openness of a lot of people to travel with you or have an experience together. I would say the tendency that I had a little bit was to over prepare. So I would always say, prepare as much as you have to feel safe. Because if you go to a place that you've never been before, obviously it's a little bit intimidating. So you want to prepare enough for you to feel good about going to the place, but try to not over prepare. Once you go, and once you learn a lot about what is actually going on in the place from a local, you see how much has actually been marketed to you over the internet before you came to the place. But I would always say, try to map out the basic first experience, and then prepare more through conversations with travelers, maybe travel blogs that you look at. Don't just trust what is being pushed down to you in terms of offers on the internet, because the risk, if you over prepare, is that's actually taking more of your attention and limits your time and your experience in the place itself. I would say plan out the first 4 weeks and maybe have a general list of countries or experiences that you want to have, and then plan the rest on the road. I mean, we live in such a connected world with internets and SIM cards. The quality of the connections in every country, even in Cambodia, was so phenomenal that we were constantly connected to everything. Get inspired by travel blogs and vlogs by other travelers. There's a lot out there. I have my own. I'll give you the link at the end of the webinar. But it's great to just see the experiences of other people that have gone to the places, just to get some first inspiration of what you want to see. Main things to consider for preparation: passport, obviously very important, but also in terms of when does it expire? A lot of countries want at least half a year in between your date of entry or the date of exit and the expiration of the passport, or need a certain amount of free pages within the passport, which sounds funny if you haven't traveled that much, but by the end of that year, I was actually running out of space in my passport. So it's definitely something to consider. Immunization, so getting your shots for different countries. I can't stress that enough, because unfortunately I ran into that situation myself. I couldn't enter Jamaica because I didn't do my homework well enough. It wasn't on the initial list of countries. So I would just say, know which shots you have to get. You can get them in the countries. I would even recommend that. The level of medical service has been fantastic in all of the countries that I went to, and it's usually if not half of what you pay in the US, it's even far less. Some countries like Argentina even give you shots for free. Get your travel insurance. I would say that's probably one of the most important things. It's fairly affordable because, again, the healthcare is a lot more affordable in other countries than we are used to in the US. I went with IMG Global. I got the Patriot America, which was a great plan and had me covered. But do some of your research. There's a lot of websites out there. I can recommend some if that helps. I would highly recommend to get a travel credit card that can support your travel, and where you can collect points and don't spend too much on different currencies or whatever it is. I had the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which has been amazing. It got me back and forth between Europe and here twice for free with the points that I collected on just spending regularly. So that's a great credit card. Get a virtual mail address. I honestly would say get a virtual mail address anyways. I still have it and I'm not going to give it up. It's a mail address that you can direct all of your mail to, and they will scan the mail for you and send it to you by email. You can forward things. You have kind of packages delivered. You can have them put it all together and send it to you once there's a certain amount of it. I went with ipostal.com. I still have it. I'm not going to give it up. It's fantastic service, and it will kind of ease that notion of not being available for like officials or whatever it is. Planning luggage wisely, huge. I totally overpacked. You don't need much. And the interesting thing is, you can really trust local retail. You will always be able to buy clothes or buy things that you need on the road, also for, usually a really good price. And then you sometimes almost even want to look local. You want to maybe buy some things that will make you feel and breathe the culture a little bit more. So make sure that you don't just pack your whole closet into a suitcase and travel as light as possible. And then I went with local SIM cards. There's a couple of international plans like T-Mobile that give you unlimited data in every country, but it's not very fast. And SIM cards internationally are incredibly cheap. So you kind of you have to unlock your phone still in the home country, but then you just travel to any country. One of the first things that you're offered is a local SIM card, and it's a fraction of what we pay in the US. And it's really high speed. So that is usually one of the first things that I did when I came to one of the countries. Here are a couple of websites for resources. I will also send all of you guys the slide deck after this call, so you kind of have all of this. Nomadic Matt is a great website. Matt has been nomadic for more than 10 years, and he has a ton of advice. I did a lot of my research before I got started through his website, and he's a great, funny guy. He'll have a lot of really valuable advice for you as well. And then what I did to prepare for the places, I went classic with Lonely Planet, but I got the ebooks. Because if you have the ebooks, you can download them on your phone and you can bookmark certain things. And I just literally used my phone, so I didn't have to carry a lot of books or didn't have to carry the book through experiences, especially if it involved some physical hiking and so on. So that has been really good for me. The questions that I usually get a lot is, what about time and money? And that is a question that, everyone kind of has to answer for themselves. I would argue there is no such a thing as the perfect time to do any of this. It's never really a moment where you say, oh, now the universe is sending me on, this journey and everything kind of comes together. It's a decision that you have to make. And of course, there's always a price that you pay for that, in terms of either having to step out of a job or to have to go into this phase of like really getting rid of everything that is holding you back materialistically. But I would say, just from my own personal perspective, this journey has been worth everything. Not only that I did for that, or quitting the job, or kind of, the price that you pay for being on the road, sometimes in terms of, lack of comfort or whatever. You grow so much, you see so many things, you have so many experiences. There's no question if it's worth the time and the money. And money-wise, you can actually travel for a fraction of what, for example, I pay right now in San Francisco for a room. It's far cheaper, including everything. So make your calculations wisely. But again, if you have questions in regards to that, I'm always happy to talk you through it, or kind of give you a sense for what you pay for a certain lifestyle in different countries. But money shouldn't necessarily be the reason of, why you don't do this or what is holding you back. I think a couple of the personal highlights that I can share, but countries were probably, my favorites were Vietnam, Japan, and Peru, just in terms of, how much it took me away, and how much I experienced in terms of things that I had really never seen before. My favorite cities were Buenos Aires, Kyoto, and Lisbon. all of them I would, instantly go back and choose to live in them for extended periods of time. And then nature wise, I think the top three would have been Patagonia for sure, Sapa in northern Vietnam, the mountain regions with the tribes and the highest mountain in Indochina, and then Borneo with the jungle and the apes and monkey populations. A couple of the things that were like kind of fun things that happened on the side, the best local experience was crashing a wedding in the Cambodian countryside, which was incredible. They let us into that room where only the family was sitting because they were so intrigued by having travelers join their wedding. Another one was the Khmer New Year, which the funny thing as we traveled around the world, and maybe some of you know that, is that different cultures celebrate their New Year's at different points throughout the year. So what happened, especially in the first quarter of our experiences there, is we kind of went from New Year celebration to New Year celebration. So I think one of the funnest ones that we had was the Khmer celebrations in Cambodia. And the reason, and I'm going to show you the picture here in a second, the reason was that they have this gigantic party on the streets with a lot of baby powder. So they throw baby powder at you and have these water guns where the whole city just goes crazy. And it was an experience like nothing else. Absolute craziess. The best animal experience was definitely mud bathing with elephants in a rescue park in northern Thailand in Chiang Mai. Maybe some of you know about the sad story of a lot of elephants in Asia, but this was actually a park that was out there to rescue them, which was beautiful. I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this whole experience is not only, looking at beautiful pictures or experiences that I had throughout the year, but really what changed for me personally in terms of how do I look at the world. And I think one of the things that really changed is the way that you look at things. So a lot of people tend to say that traveling is about seeing things, what I've learned, I think, is that what you really learn is seeing things in a new way and experiencing places in a new way. So it's not just collecting these memories, but you almost acquire the skill of what they call the beginner's mind in Zen Buddhism, so almost looking at your environment like a child and finding, seeing things, finding things that are unusual. So one of the big things that I personally took away is that the way that I look at my own home or at my home country or now at San Francisco, where I've lived for a long time, has changed a lot, just because you're out there to find these specific experiences. The other thing that I found is you always find yourself in these countries. So if you're going to entirely change or to have a place change you, it doesn't happen that much if you don't change yourself from the inside. So you see the place and you get immersed in it, but what ultimately happens is you always find yourself. So whatever you have inside of you will project to the outside, and you will always create and find the same environments, just in a Cambodian way or a Peruvian way. So it's really almost like a mirror for yourself in terms of your own development and how that shows up in the countries that you go to. Less is more. I've always been very essentialist in terms of materialistic things or how much baggage I carry. But I think I've become so effective with just the essential things that I really need in order to be happy and live a good life. That has probably been taken to the extreme through this experience over 12 months. And then the last thing really that I've learned is how connected everything is. How much, we sometimes look at other countries and think they're so far away, but not only in our globalized world is everything connected, but also how much effect does our behavior no matter where we are, have on the world around us. Not only the nature, but the people, their customs. So even any choice that we make as a consumer, for example, in the US, will have direct effects in the producing countries, or will have direct effects in the way that some other person can go about their life. So I think it's something that I knew intellectually, but really seeing how connected everything is, I think made me very much aware of our responsibility in this world, and about making responsible choices. So this is kind of the end. I have a couple of really inspiring quotes, but I'm realizing that I'm already keeping you 5 minutes longer than I intended. I will definitely send you the slide deck and kind of let you dig a little bit deeper into the resources that I provided here. I will bring up this slide really briefly because this shows my blog. I did a lot of video vlogging, actually, especially in the first time of my trip. And you find that on projectmade.org. That's the website. But you can also just go to my YouTube channel. You'll have all the videos there. And that's Catherine Hildy's Project Made. I'd love for you guys to subscribe, by the way. It's a fun channel. And then obviously, feel free to connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, or just send me an email. Again, I'm not doing this for any type of self-promotion or for a business that I want to build out of it. It's really something as an experience that I would wish for anyone to have if they have the guts and kind of the drive to do something like that, even if it's just 4 months or 3 months. So whatever I can do to help to make this experience possible for you, or help you kind of make the decision or give advice, I'm more than happy to do that. One-on-one, again, send me an email, or send me a message through Facebook, and we can set up a time. So yeah, that's it. We're already at 37 minutes. So I hope that you guys took a lot out of this, and at least kind of had that feeling of maybe being on a little bit of a world trip here with me. I want to hang back for anyone who has questions right now, or if you have comments or anything that you want to share, then hang back. Please enable your camera and your microphone so we can talk. But for the rest of you, I wish you a fantastic weekend. And again, thank you for tuning in. And I hope all of you guys took something out. All right. Have a great Saturday. And hang back, you guys, if you have questions.
Hey, Catherine, this is Suzanne. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Suzanne. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I just want to say hey real quick. I'm going to have to jump off, but that was amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. You're an amazing photographer, too. I was really enjoying those photos. I'm really into photography, so that was really special. But you reminded me so much of, I had the opportunity to do 2 months of backpacking with my sister about 8 years ago or 10 years ago or so after college, and it just brought back a lot of the planning and the not planning and the meeting people along the way, and mainly gaining a new perspective on everything. So true. Like, there's just no substitute for that, other than going to another culture. So that was really, really cool. I think I could learn a lot from you about the minimalist life, because I struggle with that. So we'll have to talk about that more later.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, but you bring up so many good points, and it's really about how do you sustain this experience. Like, to your point, if it's been a while, it's almost like you need to set yourselves these little islands of reminding yourself what it did for you. And yeah, definitely we can talk about the essentialist lifestyle.
Yeah, but
I can feel it already with
stuff.
But yeah, I'd love to have a discussion later on. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
Bye.
All right, anyone else, you guys? Thanks for the comment, Bryce. Glad you tuned in. Right. Any other questions? You can either, if you have problems with your microphone or your video, obviously you can always just type it into the chat as well. All right. Sounds like no. So again, let me see if I can bring up the slide again for the contact information, because again, especially if you kind of don't feel comfortable doing it right now, please get in touch one-on-one, so we can set up a time to maybe just discuss. We can do it over Zoom or over email, whatever questions you have. But I'm going to bring it up once more. Let's see. So email is probably the best. It's katherinehpeters@gmail.com. So if you just shoot me a quick email there, that's usually the easiest. But yeah, any of those channels would work. All right. Great. Well, thank you so much, Gulnara, for tuning in and for your comment. It's great to see you. It feels like it's been forever since our Vipassana experience, and I'm very glad you tuned in. Thank you so much. And for everyone else, thanks for joining again. Have a wonderful Saturday, and I hope to talk to all of you guys as soon as possible. All right. Bye.